Living with a narcissist is hard for everyone or anyone, but when you grow up with one, it can affect your life in significant ways. And when that narcissist is your mother, it can change your whole life. That's what we're talking about today. Today we're going to talk about moms and how sometimes when they're narcissists, they kind of ruin our lives. So let's get started. My name is Angie Atkinson, and on this channel, I offer free daily video coaching to help you discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse in toxic relationships. If that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button and let's get going. But first, do you have your coffee? Today I'm using this awesome Rockbridge cup, which we talked about before. Rockbridge, Missouri is a place my family likes to go and do their little fishing thing while I pretend like I'm not there. But I want to show you this other cup that I got yesterday from my office manager and friend, Melina. See, it says, today is a great day. Today is going to be a great day. I think it's really cute and I really like it. It's ginormous though, as you can see in comparison to a regular coffee cup. So I didn't want to use it today because I thought, you know, I don't need to drink quite that much coffee at once. But maybe tomorrow is Saturday. A lot of people have asked me to talk about what it is that narcissistic mothers do to their children in the long run. And I think there's a good reason for that, because a lot of times when we find ourselves with narcissists in our lifetimes, it's because we were raised by either a narcissistic mother or father. Now, there are plenty of narcissistic fathers out there, as we all know, but narcissistic mothers have a kind of different way of going about things than your everyday average narcissist. Would you agree? Let's start right here. Why does a woman who is a narcissist have children in the first place? Well, it's not because she wants to love and nurture the child, believe it or not, and grow them into a healthy individual who could be successful on their own terms or something like that. In fact, she has children because, in a way, she needs reassurance in herself. She needs to feed her ego. She needs to have someone who will do her bidding and have someone who she can live through in some cases. I don't know that a woman begins to have a child this way. I don't know that that's her intention when she starts out. I think in her mind, a narcissistic mother thinks, well, if I have children, that will be someone who loves me. So up to a point, most parents, when their children are young, they do tend to experience children as narcissistic extensions of themselves. But at some point, healthy parents let go of that feeling. The goal of raising kids is to teach them how to fulfill themselves and not to teach them to fulfill your own agenda. You know, I work really hard with my kids personally to ensure that they have their own personalities. And what I mean by that is, you know, if they say, oh, Mom, I'm going to be a writer like you, or, oh, Mom, I'm going to do this like you, I say, well, is that something you really want? Because you don't have to be just like me. You're your own individual person. What are you into? And if they want to be a writer, great, but I don't want them to want to be a writer or a coach or whatever just because I do those things. Children should be permitted to grow up and be themselves, and not just permitted, but encouraged. What is it that a narcissistic mother does to a child that's different in that way? There's a quote by Daniel Woods Winnicott that I find really, really interesting here. I'm going to read it to you. The mother gazes at the baby in her arms, and the baby gazes at his mother's face and finds himself therein, provided that the mother is really looking at the unique, small, helpless being and not projecting her own expectations, fears, and plans for the child. In that case, the child would find himself not in his mother's face, but rather in his mother's own projections. The child would remain without a mirror, and for the rest of his life would be seeking this mirror in vain. Isn't that fascinating? Let me ask you a question. Do you have a narcissistic mother? How do you know if you have a narcissistic mother? Bottom line, in a narcissistic mother, everybody in the outside world might just think she's amazing and awesome. But as a child and as an adult, you knew your mother, and you know your mother as someone who might be really self-centered, might be kind of touchy and brittle and, oh, poor her, easily angered. And of course, she's always correct. She's always right about everything. She is probably loved by her friends and colleagues, and she hasn't shown them her true self. They don't know the same mom that you know. Your narcissistic mother might offer you a little love and support every now and then, but unfortunately, it is quite unpredictable and quite punctuated by generally control. She wants to control everything that you're doing. You might always find yourself walking on eggshells. Most of the time, her children decide to just please her and hope they can get whatever they can. Now, sometimes you've got your children who can't stop talking. They can't stop telling the truth, and that never goes well for them. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about on this one. Let me just be clear, though. Most successful people are not narcissists. Now, there are plenty of them out there, obviously, but a narcissist psychologically is built to try to get attention, whether it's because they're beautiful, they're smart, they're charismatic, they're rich. I think most people in the world have a certain amount of that in them, and some people have narcissistic traits, but healthy people put their kids first. They reorient their behavior. They change their behavior when they're raising kids. Healthy mothers come home and they support their children after work, after school. They don't control their children. Narcissistic mothers always control and try to get attention from and about their children, even at home. If you had a narcissistic mother, you might have found that she didn't have a lot of patience. She didn't have any empathy. She didn't want you to be independent. It's ongoing. It's a process. It's a pain. If you had a narcissistic mother, the best thing that you can do is heal yourself, grow yourself, and do better for your own children. Break that toxic cycle, because the fact is she probably also had a narcissistic person in her life. It's a cycle. Change it. Break it. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I want you to do for your kids if you have them. I'm going to wrap up for right now. I will see you guys later today for another video, and listen, stay tuned, because I have a big, huge, exciting announcement that will especially affect people who need help and can't afford help with getting through this stuff. Stay tuned for that later today. All right, I'll see you soon. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life, and hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. It's my mission to teach others what I know to be true. You really can create the life you want. Take care of your body, take care of your soul, nurture the real you, and introduce him or her to the world. Be comfortable in your own skin and in your place in this world. Take your spot, take it now, and the universe will take its cue from you. You feel me? If so, subscribe to my channel. Let's get it done together. Earlier today, we began a conversation about narcissistic mothers, and now we're going to continue it. Let's get started. My name is Angie Atkinson, and on this channel, I offer free daily video coaching to help you discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse in toxic relationships. If that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button and let's get rolling. So a narcissistic parent is someone who lives through their children, is possessive of their children, and or engages in different kinds of competition with their children. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, I did a video a while back about our narcissistic parents jealous of their children. And unfortunately, especially when it comes to mothers and daughters, that tends to be the case quite often. Typically, the narcissistic parent will see a child, and this does include adult children, as a threat. Often they coerce them to exist in the parent's shadow with not only unreasonable expectations, but also with the expectation that the child will not be themselves, that they will not differ from the parent's idea of what they are. The child is rarely loved just for being him or herself. A lot of studies have been done on this topic of narcissistic parenting and how it impacts the children. It's really important to determine the difference between parent tendencies, where sometimes a parent might have slight narcissistic tendencies, like, you know, oh, we're going to church, so make sure you wear, you know, what is appropriate for church or whatever, which isn't really narcissistic, but it does show that the parent cares about the way that the child looks in public, which I think is reasonable, because people do judge us on our children and the way they look. But there's a difference from that kind of stuff to chronic parenting in a narcissistic fashion. A lot of parents want to show off their children. Of course, their children are awesome. A lot of parents want to have high expectations. Might have to be tough at times on certain things. Like if a child's behaving destructively, or like if you're me, grades are really important in my house. That's something that I'm really like, you know, focus on your grades. If they're getting good grades, I'm not complaining. If they're getting bad grades, we have to talk about things. When a child behaves in a way that can hurt the child short-term or long-term, a parent sometimes has to get tough. But none of these traits by themselves constitute what I would consider pathological parental narcissism. I think the difference is a narcissistic parent has a real serious tendency to sort of deny the child's sense of self-importance, their sense of individuality. The way the parent sees it is that the child exists purely to serve the parent's selfish needs and their ideas and their goals for the child. A child is going to be more likely to rebel against this, but of course, if they're raised by a narcissistic parent, they often don't even know that there's an option to rebel. A narcissistic parent can produce either another narcissist, or in some cases, an empath, someone who feels everything because they spend their whole life. I used to say I had to know what was going to happen based on the face of the person. And so I needed to learn early how to read faces, which I think has contributed, or maybe was a result of, my being an empath. So we're going to talk about some signs that you're dealing with a narcissistic parent, okay? Number one, the parent lives through the child, uses the child for their benefit. Obviously, we all want our kids to succeed, but certain narcissistic parents will set expectations not for the benefit of the kid, but because they have their own selfish needs that they want fulfilled. Instead of raising a child who thinks and feels and has goals of their own, the parent will make the child become an extension of their personal wishes. For example, my daughter, she likes to wear different clothes than I like to wear. She likes to do her hair different. She's currently sporting a little green in her hair. That's all her. And I'm okay with it because it's her expressing her individuality, even though maybe I wouldn't walk around with green hair. She looks cute. She likes it. She's happy. That's all I care about. Feel me? I don't think hair is a big deal. Certain narcissistic parents would be threatened by her potential, by her promise, her success of, her future self, because she is different than me. But I encourage her to be herself because she's pretty amazing. You feel me? And if she was just going to be a carbon copy of me, then she would just be not the same kind of version of, she would just be a watered down version of something she isn't. And now she's who she is. And I love that. Move on to sign number two. Competition. Narcissistic mothers are very often competing with their kids. You can grow up and feel as though you have no real thoughts in your head, as though everything you think, say, and feel is not real, not quite as real as everyone else. Your narcissistic mother might have nitpicked you or made real serious judgments and criticisms of you, unfavorable comparisons. Maybe she invalidated your positive attitudes and emotions and rejected any accomplishments and success that you had. And of course, the common theme here is that you're not good enough. You'll never be good enough. There's nothing you can do to be good enough because you're not perfect in the way that your narcissistic mother would want you to be. This lowers your confidence as the child, as the adult child even, of the narcissist, and it gives your narcissistic mother a really ridiculous boost of her own insecure self-esteem, self-worth. Number three, grandiosity. They act superior to their children. They have a falsely inflated self-image. They are conceited. They think they're better than everybody else. They are not treated in the same way as other people, and they treat other people as though they are not human, as though they are not quite as important as them, as though they are objectified. They are objects. They are just as important as tools or objects or things. Clearly, with the impression that mother is better than child. Clearly, the sense of entitlement pretty much exclusively based on the mother's ego or lack thereof, her huge, overinflated, overblown ego. She feels as though she is superior to her children and to everyone else in her life, and she makes them feel like they're not as important, not as human. The next sign we're going to talk about is the superficial image of the narcissistic mother. Depending on the type of narcissist she is, she may be super dolled up and pretty all the time, or she might just be like real smart, the cerebral, the somatic, all of these things. These can be the mother. One of the things that happens in the case of the narcissistic mother pretty commonly is that she does have that fake self that she portrays to the world. It might be a perfect mother. It might be a big caregiver. She might even control you with her caregiving behaviors. They will publicly parade you like a possession. They'll be overly concerned with your physical appearance. They'll be overly concerned with your connections and all the things. They want you to help them show the world how awesome they are. Does that make sense? Superficial image. And it's always, of course, very different from the image at home. What they show us in public and what they act like behind closed doors, two very different things. So let's talk about number five. The narcissistic mother is manipulative. She will guilt trip you. She will blame you for everything wrong in her life. She will shame you. She will compare you to other people negatively, most often to your siblings, in fact, sometimes, because that pits you and your siblings against each other and makes it so y'all can't gang up against her if that's the case. She will often reward and punish you in manipulative ways. So if you chose to go to a different college than she wanted you to go to, she might have cut off her support because you didn't go to her alma mater or the college she thought was good enough for her family. If you chose a different major, you chose to have a child when she didn't want you to have a child, whatever, she would personally take that as an insult and roll with it. There's the emotional coercion of it all. She'll tell you you're not a good child, you're not a good daughter, you're not a good son unless you do what she thinks you should do. You should measure up to her expectations. Again, the common thread is that love is a conditional reward. There's no unconditional love for the child of a narcissist. And that's not fair. They will withhold love. They will tell you, you will be alone if you don't do what I say. And you're afraid to do anything that you want to do because you're constantly under that threat of being alone. And that's our biggest fear. All of our biggest fear in the world is being alone. ultimately. It comes down to, sure, we like to be alone for a few minutes, but nobody wants to be alone forever. Nobody wants to be without help in their lives. And so the narcissistic mother plays on this quite often. Number 6, another sign, they'll be real rigid, real touchy. You can't say certain things to the narcissistic mother without upsetting her and making her go ballistic and ruin your day. She will regulate you on, like, if you go to school, if you're a kid, you go to school and you're wearing a purple shirt and she thinks you should be wearing a green shirt, that's going to like set her off for the whole day. You look at her the wrong way. It could be you're rude, or she perceives that you're rude just because you say the truth. Another reason might be her desire to control you. Will respond negatively when you aren't doing exactly what she says or not letting her pull your strings. And it will be things that are small, like, you loaded the dishwasher wrong, or you set the groceries up on the checkout counter in the wrong order or something. There's also number 7, the lack of empathy. And this is the case with every narcissist. They don't feel what other people feel. They don't care about what other people feel. And this can become overwhelming and exhausting for the child, even as an adult of a narcissist, an adult child of a narcissist, because even as an adult child, only what narcissistic mothers feel or think counts. She could affect the way you name your children. She could affect the way you raise your children. She could affect the person you're married to. She could affect the person you choose to be with for the rest of your life. She could affect where you buy your home. Only what she thinks and feels matters. And when you get to the place where you are ready to be independent from her and change your life, you may make choices based on what she wants and not what you want. And so if you're dealing with a narcissistic mother, it's really, really important for you to take the time to recognize what it is that you really want, which may differ from what she really wants. She will invalidate you. She will make you feel like you don't matter. Number 8, there's the whole codependent issue and the whole dependent issue. Some narcissistic parents will expect their children to take care of them in ways that you wouldn't expect, and sometimes physically, sometimes emotionally, sometimes financially. I've heard so many stories of narcissistic mothers stealing their child's social security number and ruining their credit before the child even turns 18, and then these people are stuck dealing with this for the rest of their lives after that. There's nothing wrong with taking care of your parents, but the narcissistic parent typically will manipulate the child into making unrealistic sacrifices. Instead of being the parent will often let the child behave in the way of the parent. That's not always the case, but that does happen. Some narcissistic parents will also push their adult children into codependent behaviors, because while the parent will support or enable the child's underachievement, they do this by never pushing them to achieve anything, never teaching them to be responsible or mature. They may enable an addiction or bad health, and they may do this in order to keep the child closer to them. Number 9, jealousy. The parent is jealous, and we've talked about this before. The narcissistic mother will hope that the child will permanently live under their influence. They may become jealous of the signs of the child growing up and becoming someone else, mature and independent. They will perceive any sort of act on the child's part to be an individual as an attack on the parent. Did you ever meet somebody who got real upset because their child did something wrong and they took it real personally? Like, maybe in high school they snuck out one night, went out with their friends or something and got in trouble, and the parent would say to the child, "Why would you do this to me?" That is not about the parent when somebody does something like that. That is about the child. The appearance of a romantic partner in an adult child of a narcissist's life may also be viewed as a big threat. I know that was the case for a lot of people. The child's spouse or partner may be treated with rejection, criticism, over-criticism, and again, competition. Me or him, me or her, that kind of thing. And it's not like they usually say, you can't marry that person. Well, they do sometimes, but a lot of times they'll just put you in a very difficult spot where if you don't do what the narcissistic parent wants, they will punish you in some way. And often you'll find yourself, if you haven't healed yet, you'll find yourself putting your parent before your spouse, and that's not okay in most cases, unless of course your spouse is also a narcissist, and then you've got a whole mess to deal with. But here's the deal: put yourself first and your own needs first, and then work through the rest of it. Mothers will sometimes say things like, "How dare you take my child from me?" to the partner. Who do they think they are? Well, look, do you expect your child to live under your thumb forever? If so, you may have a problem. Number 10, and this is my final one for today: neglect. A narcissistic parent may neglect their child in ways that you wouldn't expect. The narcissistic parent will not let the child have an opinion of their own. They will not sometimes offer the child the very basic resources they need. But on the flip side of that, the child may have everything in the world that they need, but they just don't have the ability to be heard by the parent. There's emotional neglect. And now it's time for the question of the day. Question of the day. The question of the day is, have you experienced a narcissistic mother? How did you get through it? And are you still in contact with her today? Share your thoughts and your experiences in the comments below, and let's talk about it. That's all I've got for you today. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. It's my mission to teach others what I know to be true. You really can create the life you want. Take care of your body. Take care of your soul. Nurture the real you and introduce him or her to the world. Be comfortable in your own skin and in your place in this world. Take your spot. Take it now. And the universe will take its cue from you. You feel me? If so, subscribe to my channel. Let's get it done together. Hey survivors, it's Angie, and today in this vlog extra, we're going to talk about the root of core pain. What is core pain? What's your core wound? How did you get it? And what can you do about it? All right, let's get started. So basically, the root of core pain is a statement. It's something within ourselves that causes us to suffer. It causes us to feel like we don't deserve love or we don't have love in our lives. Sometimes it actually causes us to not have love, right? So what is that? Well, look, what it all comes down to is that whether we realize it or not, each of us has some big secret, right? We have some big secret that is a negative belief that we see, about ourselves. And it is something that feels so freaking devastating that it can literally take us down an unbearable freaking dark hole. Okay, it's like falling into your own personal hell if you actually allow yourself to feel that. All right, so while everyone has different issues, everyone had a different childhood. Each of us has a particular and opposite set of like certain compensating behaviors, right? So, and this is this set of behaviors is sort of the architecture of our false selves that we also have. The narcissists have a false self as well. Ours tends to take the form of us screwing up our own lives. Whereas with the narcissist, they tend to screw up their lives, but more often the lives of the people around them, right? Interesting, huh? I always think so. Anyway, I guess my point is that, personally, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was wrong with me and what it was that, I could... how exactly was I supposed to heal? You know what I'm saying? Like, what was wrong with me? I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, like, what was wrong with me. And the fact of the matter is that, yeah, there were some things wrong with me. I'm not perfect. I still have some work to do, like I say all the time. But, it wasn't always me. So anyway, my quest, my journey to understand my own emotional pain is what has really brought me to this point that I'm at today, where I'm sitting here talking with you. It is what caused me to, study this stuff in the first place. It's what caused me to, start looking into human nature, into like psychology and sociology and all of these things, because unfortunately your average, standard psychology course is not going to teach you how to heal the core pain, right? So, well, conventional therapy sometimes does help to repair that stuff and to, reprogram yourself. What it all comes down to is that most of us, our deepest fear is that we will not be loved and that we do not deserve love. Okay. And our core pain is often, we can't see it. It's just, we don't even know what it is because we are so broken in other ways, or because it formed when we were tiny babies, or, our degree of separation, from what we consider unconditional love is our, quote unquote, normal emotional endpoint, right? So the point is that, each of us has something inside of us that feels broken. And that is our core wound. That is the thing that, it might be that we don't feel good enough. It might be that we, secretly believe that we are fraudulent because we've been told for our whole lives that we're not normal and we're not right and things are wrong with us. It could be because, you know, it could be anything. It's deeply, first of all, it's deeply ingrained into our biology. Okay, so we don't very often question this. We don't very often ask, why do I feel differently? We don't, you know, we have this negative emotional set point. We have this, you know, this secret. It's a secret. we keep this secret from ourselves, from everyone else. It's a secret core pain. So anyway, the point is, the very worst thing that we feel about ourselves is our primary negative, you know, self-concept. And that is what organizes our entire self, the self that we, you know, that we show to the world. You feel me? Bottom line, everyone's got a different threshold for abuse. You know, everyone has had some kind of trauma in their childhood, you know, or in their life. Even if someone had, you know, appears to have had a completely blissful childhood and everything was wonderful, you know, there could have been a bully at school that caused them this kind of trauma, or there could have been a sibling who was secretly abusing them, or an uncle, or, you know, someone that you weren't aware of, or that your parents weren't aware of if this were you, you know what I'm saying? You know, and core wounds, like I said, it's about feeling unlovable. It's about feeling dirty, stupid, not good enough, unwanted, you know, ugly, fat, disgusting, whatever the core wound is. Maybe, you know, you were a little overweight as a child and you got bullied at school about it. Maybe that's where your core wound comes from. Figuring out what your core wound is, you know, will help you a lot, because that's going to guarantee a little bit of healing for you, okay? Because when you know what your core wound is, it really influences, you know, the fact is it really does influence you as a person. It influences who you are, how you behave, all of these things. And, you know, it affects how you live your life. So if you want to continue to live your life the way you have been, maybe you don't need to watch this video. If you're looking to change your life and make it better, why don't you look into your core wound? So, you know, there are a number of ways you can do this. You know, you can, I suggest journaling about it. Write down, you know, your earliest memories, and write down your feelings about these issues and things like this, okay? From the very beginning, when you were a child, you know, you probably wanted to fit in, right? And, you know, if you were being abused in your childhood in any way by anyone, you may have felt a sense of being separate, a sense of otherness, you know, and a lot of times it's our own parents who neglect us and abuse us. And so when we look back at our childhoods, we don't see unconditional love. We don't even know the feeling of what it feels like to be loved unconditionally. And as adults, we become cynical and we go, there is no such thing as unconditional love. And I don't know that there is, except in the case of a healthy mother and child. But regardless of that, you know, we have to decide how we're going to handle it from there. Here's someone who can love you unconditionally, my friend. That's you yourself. And until you do, no one else will be able to either, if that makes any sense. So, something to think about. Bottom line, your core wound is the thing that hurts you, the thing stuck, that's keeping you stuck. It's the thing that is your deepest, darkest fear, your deepest, darkest belief about yourself. And the best way to change it is to define it, decide why you feel it, make choices to make different, you know, to feel different things, make choices to change your life and overcome it. So if you're interested in learning more about how to discover and get through your core wound, please let me know. I've got plenty of material on that. I would be happy to share with you. Leave me a comment below. All right. Talk to you soon. As always, thanks for being a part of my life and a part of my day. And thanks for letting me be a part of yours. All right. I'll really see you soon. Morning, survivors. It's Angie. Today we're going to talk about how sometimes, if it's not one thing, it's your mother. Let's do it. A lot of my viewers have been asking me to talk about narcissistic mothers, and this is a hard one. It hits a little close to home, but let's talk about it. All right. So one thing someone asked me was, what does a narcissistic mother mean when she says, I love you? Well, here you go. Here it goes. 1, she might feel obligated to say that. 2, she might use that as a manipulation tactic to get you to do what she wants. For example, she might say, I love you so much, can you come over and mow the lawn for me? Or whatever, that's a silly one. But the thing is that narcissistic mothers they see their children as extensions of themselves. And this continues throughout adulthood. And that's why there are so many adult children of narcissists out here in the world who are no contact or who are still being tortured by their narcissistic mothers. It's a very interesting thing. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the characteristics of a narcissistic mother. This might be a couple series, video long series, because there are there are several questions I have to answer here. So, characteristics. Number one, everything she does is something she can deny, right? So, or at least according to her. So a narcissistic mother tends to work in weird ways. Now, do I think that she loves her children? Yes, up to a point. Do I think it's a healthy, normal love? No. She loves her children, like I said, like they're an extension of herself. And so she becomes especially disappointed and devastated even when her children go outside of the little box that she's painted for them on the ground. And what I mean is, a lot of times a narcissistic mother is going to have a really specific vision for her children. She's going to be like, well, I want you to be, let's say, I don't know, a teacher or whatever. And let's just say it's a teacher. It could be whatever it is, you know. And when the child says, Mom, I don't really want to be a teacher. I really want to be a truck driver or whatever. Mom is incredibly disappointed and horribly humiliated and embarrassed and blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, Mom wants you to go to this college or that college and you choose a different college and, you know, you're evil and you're the bad kid and da-da-da-da-da. You know, narcissistic mothers often have a golden child and they have a scapegoat child. And what I have found personally, throughout my, you know, through doing my coaching work that I do, is that almost like literally 99% of us, or okay, 90% of us came out of homes where we had at least one narcissistic parent. It's not always the mother, but it is very often the mother. And I think part of the reason for this is that, you know, narcissistic fathers tend to either control or distance themselves from their children. Narcissistic fathers will become jealous of their boys and they will become controlling of their girls. Narcissistic mothers have a whole different thing. They're jealous of their girls for weird, sick reasons sometimes, like because they're younger and more attractive, and because they're smarter, or because, you know, they have a better life ahead of them, or they're, you know, I have one client who is incredibly smart and educated, and she comes from a family that isn't quite as educated, and her mother just treats her horribly, constantly gaslights her. When she went through one of the most painful breakups of her life, her mother acted like it was nothing. And she acted like she was exaggerating and all of this stuff. So, and she wasn't. She was really being tortured. It was a really terrible situation. So, narcissistic mothers will minimize you. They will make you feel as though you are not as important as anyone else. If you grow up with a narcissistic mother, you will grow up believing you are not good enough. And no matter how often people tell you that you're good enough, you have to really work hard to see it and feel it. And you literally have to rethink everything that you know about life, because the person who was supposed to show you the way showed you a toxic route and showed you that you didn't matter, that you didn't have any ability to do what you wanted to be healthy and happy. And quite honestly, a narcissistic mother will a lot of times just flat out tell you that you don't deserve to be happy and you don't deserve anything, okay? So let's talk a little more about that. Your narcissistic mother will disguise criticism as concern. She will never come right out and say to you, you're not good enough. But she will do things like, you know, like for example, if you walked in and you had hair looking like this, she might be like, oh, what did you do with your hair? Ooh. You know, or, you know, if you choose a career path that she doesn't like, she'll be like, oh, yeah, that's really good. Ooh, you know, but she's probably going to say way more than that. And the fact is that everything that a narcissistic mother does, she will say that she's doing to quote unquote help you. Yeah. If you had a narcissistic mother, you probably grew up thinking that you just didn't get along with your mom very well. You're different people. A narcissistic mother will violate your boundaries on the regular. She will tell you, you know, she will give away your stuff, or she will, I have an example for you. A friend of mine, her narcissistic mother has another child who owns property, and that child lives in a different state, and so she told her daughter, hey, you could go live over there and take care of the house and da-da-da, pay a little rent, da-da. You know, and she literally tried to move her daughter out of her own home into her other child's home in order to help this other child without any concern for what the daughter was going to do when the other child came back and took the home back. So it was interesting. But I could give you all kinds of good examples of that. So narcissistic mothers violate your boundaries. So let's say you did something good, like you wrote a book and you got your book in the mail from the publisher. Let's say you call your mom up and you go, "Hey mom, I got a book. I published. I'm so excited." And she's like, "Oh, that's great. I'm really busy. I got to go." Okay. Or she might say, "Well, you know, your cousin Stephen King, he published a book." That's a really bad example. I don't have a cousin named Stephen King, but if I did, I'd be cool with it. Anyway, my point is that narcissistic mothers will do anything they can to minimize your accomplishments. They will do anything they can to make you feel bad about yourself. And they do consider you an extension of themselves. When they say, "I love you," it is either an obligatory statement or it means, "Let me control you." And when you don't let them control you, they do, I know what I was going to tell you. They do this thing where they get these people called, I don't know, I call them surrogates. They connect with other people closer to your age or a little younger than you or a little older, and they literally treat them as like the daughter they never had or the son they never had. And that seems to be especially the case with women, with females, with daughters. And it can be very devastating to the actual daughter, because the actual daughter spent her whole life wanting to please the mother and never could, unless she pretended to be something she wasn't, you see? It's very difficult. And eventually most of us get to the place where we're just like, "Okay, I can't be who you want me to be, Mom. I gotta go," you know? So at least that's where we get when we realize what we're dealing with. Now, some of us don't ever realize it. Some of us spend our whole lives being dominated by this woman until, you know, called mom until she dies. And that's terrible. And, you know, and then there's all the guilt that goes along with having a narcissistic mom, because, you know, we're taught that being, you know, a daughter and being a good family member means being there for your parents and doing whatever you need to do and la la la. And narcissistic moms will really blow it up that way. When you're a kid, she might read your diary. She might tell everyone your problems. Like when you started your period, if you're a girl, she might have told the whole neighborhood about it. She acts like, you know, she should be celebrated at your birthday instead of you because she made it through that long or whatever. You know, a narcissistic mother will undermine your efforts. And, you know, if you're trying to achieve something, achieve a dream, be happy, she'll undermine your efforts. And she will, you know, she will literally, as I said, she'll criticize you all the time. She'll cross all of your boundaries. She'll give away your stuff. It's no good. She'll pick a favorite child. You'll know who it is. They'll know who it is. It's no good for anybody involved. Like I said, the whole scapegoat thing, right? The fact that your narcissist mother has been spending your whole life controlling you, and probably her life controlling other people, it's very hard to explain to her that she's who she is. And so a lot of times you have to go no contact. I have so much more to say about narcissistic mothers, but I'm out of time today. So I'm going to wrap it up. If you have specific questions that you'd like to ask me, leave them in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer those. I'm going to do that this week. I've got a lot of other viewer questions I'll be answering this week as well, probably some of those today. And I did get a new computer, so we'll be good for actual recordings that aren't just vlogs. Here we go. Have a great day, everybody. I'll see you soon. Thanks, as always, for being a part of my life and a part of my day. And just in case there was any confusion at all, the coffee was good today. All right, I'll see you guys later. Have a wonderful day. Adios. Hi, it's Angie Atkinson with QueenBeing.com, and today we're going to talk about how narcissists can be jealous of their own children and why. All right, let's get started. Okay, so could narcissists really be jealous of their own children? Is that really a real thing? I mean, what? But here, look, so often people, you know, my clients are people who were or are in relationships with toxic narcissists. And they get in touch with me because they need help either getting out of or getting over a toxic relationship. Okay, and a lot of times they need someone to help them let go of one or to find themselves again. And sometimes they need no contact coaching, right? Well, one of the most common issues that I hear with my clients, and I also see this in a lot of my span group members, is that they often have also got a narcissistic parent who really shaped parts of them, and without their even realizing what was happening. Okay, so there are parents, of course, then there are also the parents who are currently struggling with narcissistic co-parents, a spouse or just an ex, due in part to whether that person's getting along with the kids, due in part to the jealousy of the kids that the narcissist displays in the relationship. It really causes a lot of trouble for both sides. So, and this is unfortunately true even when the kids are their own, whether or not they're a step parent. Okay. Ultimately, one of the questions that almost all of these people ask me, whether it's from the adult child of a narcissist or it's from, you know, from the perspective of someone who's forced to co-parent with a narcissist, is the same question. Why are narcissists jealous of children? Normal people aren't jealous of children, right? So I'm Angie Atkinson, and that's what we're going to talk about today at queenbeing.com. So let's do it. I'm going to break this video into two sections for you. First, the narcissistic mother section, and then the narcissistic father, because there are things that are different between each of those two archetypes, so to speak. All right? So first, we're going to start with describing your everyday average narcissist mother, okay? But before I do that, let me begin with a quick story. And this comes from my own life. So the other day, this just happened like earlier this week, okay? My daughter, she's only 8, she'll be 9 in November, okay? But she was wearing a tank top, and suddenly I was aware that there were certain signs of future development in her chest area, you know, just a little tiny, just the very beginning of the signs, okay? So I immediately thought of one story that was told to me by one of my clients in which her father had actually unfortunately sexualized her, and as a result, her mother retaliated and became insanely jealous. Well, she became so jealous that she couldn't even bring herself to take her daughter to get a bra when she needed one, even when she desperately needed one. Okay, so this client, long story short, I don't want to go into a bunch of personal details here, but what it comes down to is that it was a pretty tragic thing this woman did to her daughter, and it really affected my client throughout her life up to this point. So anyway, because of that situation, that day, the day that I noticed this, I literally took my daughter shopping and bought her a little bra wardrobe, a little tiny one, a little starter one, probably 5 or 6 different bras, you know. And she doesn't really need one. These are mostly little pullover bras with a little padding to help her feel comfortable and hide any beginning signs of womanhood she has happening here. And she probably doesn't, like I said, I mean, it's only noticeable in thin tank tops, but I felt like it was something I needed to do, and in part I was inspired by this client. So I told her about it, the client. I let her know about my experience and how my daughter's experience, you know, how my client's experience had inspired me to change that for my daughter. And even better, my daughter loved the experience and was, you know, it was good for our bonding as mother and daughter, honestly. Of course, in my case, the relationship with my daughter was actually strengthened by the bra experience. But in the case of a narcissistic mother, that type of experience can take a bit of a downturn when the narcissistic mother sees her daughter beginning to develop adult feminine qualities. Okay, you feel me? This is hard to talk about, but I think that when the narcissist is a mother, her jealousy toward her daughter is partially related to the fact that her daughter's growing into a woman, and this reminds the narcissist mother that she's getting older and that her daughter will soon be the one people look at, not the mother, okay? Because that's what happens. We all know it happens. I know it's going to happen. And, you know, in a healthy situation, a mother accepts that and is totally cool with it because her daughter's beautiful and amazing, and that's wonderful. But in a narcissistic situation, the mother feels slighted, jealous, angry, put upon, you know, shoved aside, so to speak, by her more, you know, younger, more beautiful daughter. Whether the daughter, you know, is trying to be more beautiful or not is irrelevant. It just, the mother looks at her daughter and sees her youth gone. It makes her feel insignificant, and the feeling of inadequacy is intensified when the mother is concerned that her husband, whether it's the father or the stepfather, is, you know, feeling warmly toward the daughter, or is, you know, loves the daughter, or even shares interests with the daughter, okay, that are separate from the narcissist mother's interests, right? So in some cases, the stepfather will, or the father, will do things that makes the narcissist mother believe that he is sexualizing the daughter, like I mentioned before. But in this case, she will, instead of doing something that she should do, which is to deal with the father being a dumbass, pardon my language, she will, and that's if he's actually sexualizing her, because remember, this is a narcissist woman. She might take any attention that he gives to the daughter as sexual attention because she's messed up in the head, right? But she would retaliate against her own daughter in the same way that a jealous wife would retaliate against someone who's actively flirting with her man and trying to steal him away. Although in this case, the daughter obviously isn't trying to steal anybody. That's her father. And if, you know, in response, unfortunately, the codependent father, the person who is in a codependent relationship with a narcissistic mother would often pull away from the daughter and focus his affections purely on the mother or any male children in the household, and or, which of course further isolates, alienates, and abuses the daughter of a narcissist without, passively abusive. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to narcissist mothers and sons, there can be, when we bring sons into the picture, right? There's a couple different scenarios. Either the son is also a narcissist and therefore the golden child who can do no wrong, or he's constantly berated for not being good enough, no matter how good he actually is, because the narcissist mother, again, of course, he's a projection of herself just like the daughter, but in a different way. And even though maybe he's class president and the valedictorian and the star of the football team, you might have a narcissist mother chasing him around, doing all these little activities with him, but really actually controlling him from every angle, right? So the narcissist mom will use tears and guilt to control and manipulate him, and that's, of course, if she's not outright ordering him around. As he gets older, she may switch her tactics from directly ordering him to do things to manipulating him with guilt and manipulating him with crying and everything else, right? Of course, most sons feel protective of their mothers, and so when there's a narcissist mother involved, she's going to twist that love into something unhealthy, okay? Often, the narcissist mother will continue controlling both daughters and sons in various ways well into adulthood, and of course, that's until they recognize the deal and decide to go to no contact, or should I say, unless they recognize it, because we all know that isn't always the case. Some people deal with this for their whole lives until the mother dies. And then they're like, well, now what the hell do? I don't know who to tell me. I don't have anyone to tell me what to do. Right? So if you are an adult child of a narcissistic mother, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're co-parenting with a narc mom, sir or ma'am, you also have a pretty good idea, but your perspective is different because you might also have guilt for not knowing how to stop her from abusing your children. As Carol McBride, PhD, who is the queen of all things narcissistic mothers and daughters, she says, envy allows the insecure mother to feel temporarily better about herself. She says when she envies and then criticizes and devalues the daughter, she diminishes the threat to her own fragile self-esteem. She says envy is a powerful tool in the narcissist's repertoire, and you will see this in the mother's interactions with other people as well. She says envy is a powerful tool in the narcissist's repertoire. She says when directed at the daughter, it creates a feeling of helplessness and painful self-doubt. Interesting, huh? So let's talk about fathers who are narcissistic real quick before we close up today, okay? Fathers of who are narcissistic tend to see their kids both as extensions of themselves and as people they need to compete with, interestingly. Kids under a certain age are sort of similar to the narcissist, up until the age of 2, really, their normal children are the center of their own worlds, and they have very little ability to empathize. And the narcissist often sees children as devious and cunning and sneaky because, they're kids. And when, they only think of themselves, kids, and they're not concerned with other people's feelings, at least not when they're little, like under the age of 2 or 3. Most kids will start showing some level of empathy by the time they're 3 years old. So there's that. And then, the narcissistic father is going to be jealous of kids because they steal his supply, so to speak, right? They steal his narcissistic supply. They cause their mother to focus so much on them that she sometimes forgets that he needs all that attention, right? And this makes him feel infuriated. And sometimes kids make a father remember what he could have been and what he's not. And so if he doesn't control them, then, he ignores and neglects them. He doesn't want any attention to be taken from him, is what it comes down to. So, you might see that a father who is a narcissist, he'll be jealous of kids because, like I said, they steal the supply. The father will find himself feeling like he's almost in shock when this happens the first few times, at least. Sometimes it continues forever, but, and then he'll argue, with a 3-year-old as though the 3-year-old's an adult, or he'll criticize a 10-year-old like she's some lowly servant who deserves nothing better than to be criticized. So the narcissistic father feels intense jealousy because the people that he considers his people, those who he feels like belong to him, his wife, his children, his mother, whatever, and whose attention he feels like he deserves, and he in fact is entitled to. Often he feels like these people are stolen from him in the moment by the child, his own child. And God forbid if it's a stepchild, because if he doesn't feel like that competitor is an extension of himself, then he will often ruthlessly batter that kid's emotional health for all he's worth. And he'll leave the kid feeling completely lost and alone in the world. The narcissistic father hates his own children because they cause his favorite sources of narcissistic supply to annoy him, ignore him, or to favor someone over him. Okay, the people that he quote unquote owns, those he feels he's got an unwritten contract with, in order, that they all owe him all of their attention all the time, or at least at every moment that he wants it. He feels betrayed by them in a sense that when they love their kids, his kids, he feels like they're taking away some love from him, and he judges them so harshly that his children grow up without the ability to even make their own choices. And like the narcissistic mother, the narcissistic father will also remain the voice in their child's head long after they're dead. Daughters of narcissistic fathers often report not getting enough attention or getting what they needed from their dads. And while their fathers might compliment them on their beauty as little children, they'll start cutting them down in sneaky ways as they get older, like maybe talking about how fat they are. Ooh, you're getting a little thick around the thighs, girl. Bad attitudes, treating them like they're, less intelligent than they really are, because God forbid a girl could be smart, right? Or whatever. For example, you know what I'm saying? Just a few examples. Essentially, they leave the daughter feeling like she's never enough. And as she ends up feeling like no one's ever really going to be there for her, because she feels like this constant fear of abandonment, and she either becomes commitment phobic, where she can't ever be with anybody, or she loves so hard that she leaves proverbial claw marks on the throat of everyone she considers hers. Daughters need to feel adored by their fathers, okay? When they aren't, they lose. A healthy father who loves his daughter can validate her and help her to realize that she has value and that she doesn't have to settle for some shit like we all settled for. You know what I'm saying? She learns that she's special and that she deserves to be loved just for being herself. That's the intense, effect of a good father on a daughter. Daughters of narcissist fathers don't get that gift because they're taught that love is conditional with their father. And when it comes to the sons of narcissistic fathers, they'll feel like they never quite measure up. They will literally compete with their sons for attention, and even in other ways, like beating them at every game, for example. Sons will respond in one of two ways. They either accept defeat and allow their narc dads to continue being the king of their castles, or they will work really hard to beat them at their own game, and then, of course, potentially become narcissists themselves, just like the daughters who are raised by narcissistic fathers who may choose to become narcissists themselves if they're not becoming victims of narcissists. Okay? In either case, the son of a narcissistic father can never feel really good about himself. Just like the daughters of a narcissistic father, they will just feel not good enough. So we're going to sum it all up, shall we? Narcissistic parents are jealous of their children for a few different reasons. And they boil down to this. First, the children are always seen as extensions of themselves, and while this can lead to narcissistic supply when the child is used as an object, for the narcissist to collect attention. Let's say a narcissistic mother has a very pretty daughter and she starts putting her in pageants. And of course, this gains her lots of attention as the mother of this girl. It can also lead to insane jealousy when the narcissistic parent feels slighted. Like in the case of that same pageant girl, when that girl grows up and gets some boobs and a butt, her mom might have some real serious issues with her. You feel me? So it can also lead to insane jealousy. And this type of jealousy, when they feel slighted, it makes them feel betrayed by someone. Mothers are jealous of their daughters in strange ways, like sexual and intellectual competitors, almost in like they're a live-in mean girl, while fathers are jealous of their kids as competitors for attention, specifically for attention. And this is kind of a live-in bully situation, right? And like girls need to be adored by their father for validation, boys need to see that their dad actually believes in them as well. Of course, in both cases, the kids can seem like mirrors to the faults and the shortcomings of the narcissistic parents, right? So what do you do? Well, first you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, okay? And then I want to ask you a question. How do you think all of this happens? And what do you think about all of this? What would you add? What have your experiences been if you've dealt with a narcissistic parent, whether it's in the case of your own parent or it's in the case of a narcissist that you're co-parenting with now? Okay, share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comments, and let's talk about it. Okay. In the meantime, if you have questions, concerns, things you want to talk about, you can visit queenbeing.com if you want to talk about or learn about narcissism, narcissistic abuse recovery, and narcissistic personality disorder. If you're looking for personal one-on-one coaching, you can visit me at narcissisticabuserecovery.online. And if you're looking for a free 5-day email course designed especially for narcissistic abuse survivors, you can pick that up at narcissismsupportcoach.com. And one more thing, if you're looking for books on narcissism, narcissistic abuse recovery, or related areas, personal development for people who have been affected by these people, you can visit my Amazon page, which you can get to by going to booksangieWrote.com. All right? You guys have a wonderful weekend. I will see you tomorrow for a quick vlog, and Sunday as well. See you soon, and have a great week. Oh, and as always, thank you for letting me be a part of your life and a part of your recovery.